what is the one factor that makes online piano lessons effective as in-person piano lessons? Well, the simplest answer is the teacher. In this video, I'm going to be sharing 3 ways that the teacher makes a significant difference when it comes to online piano lessons. I am Rosemarie, owner and teacher at Must Love Music, where we provide innovative online piano lessons that make it fun for the kids and not a lot of work for the parents. In terms of this video, before you might think, oh, another biased video on online piano lessons, I'm going to share a little bit about our family's experience with online schooling at the beginning of the pandemic, because it really was not all sunshine and rainbows by any stretch of the imagination. We were suddenly pushed online, like many other families. We had 14 hours notice, actually. That's all the notice that the schools got and that we got, that all of a sudden we were going to be moving online. I think that there's some things that the school did really well, and there's some things that maybe weren't as well done, but everybody was doing what they could in a pretty tough situation. We've been fortunate, we have twins, and so we can actually see how different teachers handle things at every single grade. And that's been a huge advantage, because then that way we get a sense of, okay, this is pretty normal and this is maybe just a teacher quirk. Now, teacher A, at the time when our kids were going online, she was pregnant with her first child, which I remember being pregnant. I don't know how well I would have handled that at the beginning of a pandemic. Teacher B had used technology in the classroom already, and it was a really central part of their teaching. You're going to notice I'm not using teacher names, and I'm working at not using any pronouns just to protect their identity, because you know what? We all did the best that we could. However, what I did find interesting was that teacher B, who used technology in the classroom, was actually the one who struggled the most with online teaching. So let me know in the comments below, was your experience similar when it came to online learning, whether this was classroom or extracurricular? So way 1, relationships are the key. Before piano, I taught in the school system, both here in Canada and internationally, between regular classrooms, and I'm putting that in quotations because they have changed a lot over the years, and also teaching special needs students. I've really learned about how important relationships are in terms of teaching. You know, relationships, they keep students going when things are hard, and when you're learning something new, that's bound to happen. It isn't always going to be easy. I learned how important it was that parents felt heard and that they feel like the teacher is on the same side as them and that they're a team working together. So going back to the 2 teachers from our family's experience, teacher A, not only did she meet with her class as a group, but she also met with every single one of her students individually in Zoom meetings. This was really key because she wanted to make sure in those first few weeks, how were students doing? How were they adjusting to the change? She also sent an email out to every single parent that was in the classroom asking, how is your family doing? How is the adjustment going? Is there anything I can do to help? Teacher B was much more inconsistent. There was no meetings with the students individually. In fact, they often, well, I shouldn't say often, they did miss classes, or they were actually really late, so 30 or more minutes for classes that had been set up. They weren't returning emails to parents, and they were just very inconsistent in their approach. As a parent, I really appreciated the consistency from teacher A and feeling like they were in our corner, that there was, somebody who understood that this wasn't an easy thing for our family. We were adjusting to something new. Teacher B, it was stressful. We'll leave it at that. It was stressful as a parent. Way 2, effectively use technology. Technology has been part of teaching for a very long time. When I started teaching many years ago, it was with a chalkboard and overhead transparencies. Fast forward a few decades, and things look a lot different now, both in my studio and then also in my kids' classes. Technology is a tool. It doesn't replace great teaching. but it does help the teacher provide better support and demonstrate skills. And so those tools can and probably should change over time. This is what makes a difference between having online piano lessons in this case and using an online piano app. There's a big difference between an app where there is no individualization for a student. There's just a set of things that you go through and a teacher who can adapt. They're both great pieces of technology, but effective technology means that it can be adapted to the student. So what did this look like for our family? Well, teacher A used simple technology. They used what they had on hand already. They used a phone. They used email, and they used Google Classroom. They didn't use anything fancy. Teacher B in the classroom for in-person lessons had used a smart board. And once that was gone for online teaching, they really struggled. The smart board had become their teaching method instead of the tool. And so the teacher just, in terms of how they taught, was having a mental block on adapting to a different tool, using Zoom, using webcams and such. And so we really want to make sure that the teacher is using technology as a tool. The goal is always to support the student. So as a parent, I just wanted my kids to learn and be supported while doing that. As a teacher, honestly, I just want to make piano lessons when they're being taught online effective by keeping more of the tech on my side. I don't want it to be confusing for my students. I don't want it to be confusing for parents, because the goal is to make it simple so that the resources and the way that you're being taught, it works for your family. Way 3, make it personal and individualized. So what do I mean by this? Well, there is a very big difference between a classroom situation where you have 25, 30, or more students versus one student or small group lessons. And in fact, this was one of the big reasons why I left teaching the classroom. I hated when I could see one of my students needed one-on-one time with me. Maybe they were struggling with something, or maybe they were just having a rough day. And I couldn't go and spend that time with that student because I had 25 or 30 other students that also needed me. In a class of 25, 30 students, it's impossible to fully be there for every single student. There are going to be students, especially if you're teaching online, who are going to fall through the cracks. And so how do you make that work? Well, in my case, I chose private lessons. I could completely focus on my student at the time. There wasn't any other distractions. And it's really easy to keep students engaged because there's nowhere to hide. And that's a pretty awesome thing. In a classroom, it's very easy to hide. When it's just like this, there's nowhere to hide. Your teacher is going to see what exactly you're doing or not doing. In small group lessons, it requires a teacher to plan differently than when it's one-on-one, but it also is different than teaching a really big group. So in small groups, you're designing the lessons in a way that students don't get bored and they're consistently switching between activities. So what did this look like for our family's situation when it came to online lessons? Teacher A made time for small groups and for individual approach, even if it was just short amounts of time. Teacher B focused on the big group, the entire class, which really meant that no one got personal attention. As a parent, I've seen firsthand that our twins, they don't really learn in a big group. They do much better when it's just them and the teacher. As a teacher, I plan lessons so that every student or my individual students get the attention that I would want my kids getting in the lesson. And that way, learning piano online is actually effective. Is learning piano online effective? Yes, as long as the teachers or the teacher follows these 3 ways of making sure that those connections are made. So if this approach sounds great to you, be sure to sign up for a free meet and greet. This is a chance to meet with me, ask any questions you have before committing to online piano lessons.